Hello and welcome to Starting Points, where one thing leads to another. Last time I had a lot of books out here and I spoke about farmer Wendell Berry, and I want to make a correction. I called Wendell Berry's wife Tanya. I called her Tanya. Twice I did that. So I apologize for that. I'm going to have trouble this time, even though only one book. It's by somebody from Japan. So pronouncing, I'll do the best I can. The name of the book is called The One Straw Revolution. Well, you can't tell anything from that. This is a copy, hardcover copy from the University of Victoria. Now, Masanobu Fukuoka is his name. He was born in 1913 and died in 2008 at 95 years old. The funny thing about this book is that the preface is by Wendell Berry. One thing leads to another. It's an introduction to natural farming. Phrase it Fukuoka coined. It's edited by Larry Korn, Korn. He was one of several who worked on a translation of Fukuoka's book. This translation's been a communal effort by the students working on the mountain. So, Fukuoka had a site on a mountain where there was citrus orchards, and he grew things, and word about what he was doing and how he was doing it, which was quite revolutionary, got filtered out to the world, and people would come there to learn from him. I got thinking about that. He didn't charge them anything, but they had sort of to work. They got their food, they got a simple mud-walled huts that were on the property to stay in. They had other chores and things to do, but it was certainly a learning experience. And I got thinking about people who in Canada or in the United States or other places who go from a high school to either a trade school, community college, two-year college, four-year college. Those students end up having maybe not to do physical work, but they end up having to pay for their lodging unless they're living at home. They have to pay for food. They have to pay for their books, tuition, maybe for transportation to get from wherever they're living to the location of their studies. And it's quite conceivable that after, say, a four-year college, that they could come out with quite a bit of a debt. Now, these people learning from Fukuoka don't come out with any debt, except their initial debt maybe of getting to the place. And they come out with lots of hands-on experience. The basic idea came to him as he happened to pass an old field which had been left unused and unplowed for many years. There he saw healthy rice seedlings sprouting through a tangle of grasses and weeds. From that time on, he stopped flooding his field in order to grow rice. He stopped sowing rice seed in the spring and instead put the seed out in the autumn, sowing it directly onto the surface of the field where it would naturally have fallen to the ground. Instead of plowing the soil to get rid of weeds, he learned to control them by a more or less permanent ground cover of white clover and a mulch of rice and barley straw. The white clover, he found, was particularly useful. Not only is there an orchard, but which needs bees to help fertilize things, pollinate things. The bees love white clover. So that was a great choice. And to just use the straw left over from growing barley or rice and cut it, and not to mat it down and make it thick, but to just put it down over the land, which will allow the rice to grow up through it, things like that. Once he had seen to it that conditions had been tilted in favor of his crops, Mr. Fukuoka interferes as little as possible with the plant and animal communities in his fields. So this must have been quite an eye-opening experience for those that went there. And his reputation spread. This is before he'd even written his book. People would come to observe things there. I've taken lots of notes as I read through it, and I just, as I say, I was amazed by these discoveries that he made and why they weren't ever discovered before is a puzzlement too. Well, there's tradition. This is the way we've done it, and this is the way we've always done it, and so let's see. These are in Roman numerals here at the start, because this is from what Larry Korn wrote. The use of mulch increases the soil's ability to retain water. And boy, the lights go off in my head. Where so many agricultural places, especially in the United States, are using ancient water sources that will have a lifetime, that they can be depleted, and so it retains. So he doesn't have to, by this mulching method that he uses. And in many places, natural farming can completely eliminate the need for irrigation. Rice and other high-yielding crops can therefore be grown in areas not previously thought suitable. Steep and otherwise marginal land can be brought into production without danger of erosion from water. By means of natural farming, soils already damaged by careless agricultural practices or by chemicals can be effectively rehabilitated. So that was very promising. So let me go a little further here into things. Here's my way was opposite of the old traditional methods. I was aiming at a pleasant, natural way of farming, which results in making the work easier instead of harder. How about not doing this, plowing? How about not doing that, flooding it with water? That was my way of thinking. I ultimately reached the conclusion that there's no need to plow, no need to apply fertilizer, no need to make compost, no need to use insecticide. When you get right down to it, there are few agricultural practices that are really necessary. Now, this about insecticides. There is a rice leafhopper, and but in his case, because he didn't use insecticides, that was largely controlled by maybe 1 year a rise in numbers of spiders, or another year it might have been an increase in frogs or toads or other insects that prey upon these leafhoppers. So he found that he didn't need to do that spraying. The trouble with the spraying, of course, is that it gets washed into the water system. Same with fertilizer, gets washed into, and you'll end up with algae blooms and things from all the way down the course of the river to the ocean. So now you can imagine that scientists who may be working in conjunction with companies might not be too happy about this. I'm thinking companies that produce insecticides, or companies that produce seeds, or companies that produce fertilizer. And of course, manufacturers of farming equipment are not going to be too pleased. And then there are other people with vested interests, less obvious perhaps, but they are working on scientific research, on grants at universities, and the grants are largely funded by seed companies or insecticide companies, or so this. I mean, it's revolutionary, and some of his thoughts were being used now in places in Europe, some places in the United States, not as it's been a struggle to because of these vested interests trying to block the approaches. And of course, for huge farms where you need the big machine, you need the fertilizer, you need the insecticides. I remember that read a passage to you about these two men that visited the cornfield in Iowa, and just everything seemed dead. And what happens is the soil gets burned out and does become, in effect, dead. Well, I just found this. Now, little tips. For instance, he planted a Japanese radish, and the roots of this hardy vegetable penetrate deeply into the soil, adding organic matter and opening channels for air and water circulation. It reseeds itself easily, and after sowing, you can almost forget about it. There's a and in his orchard, he doesn't he doesn't cultivate between the trees. He lets that grow up with vegetation, and he speaks about hydroponics and one of the problems of the use with chemical nutrients, and often light is filtered through vinyl coverings. That may not be the case now. Carrots and burdock, Japanese radish, soybeans, and when to plant things perhaps a little differently. Instead of staking them up, let tomatoes run along the ground. Roots will grow down from the nodes along the main stem, and new shoots will come up and bear fruit. Well, I just, and then certain sections, I copied down a whole lot there, or here I just said, one short a lot of these are short chapters. This one, modest solution to a difficult problem, the fruit of hard times, one after the other, the marketing of natural food, the commercial agricultural research for whose benefit, what is human food, are to me, were to me, and are to me, eye-opening and fascinating. So, thank you for joining me. Until next time, bye for now.